Hey, what up, people? Hey, John Deely, what's up? Season's greetings to you, brother John Deely, all the way in Birmingham, England, the Midlands. Hope everybody doing good, man. It's a carnival time here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Um, I've had to participate more than I've participated in a long time. My kids are part of a traditional performing group, so I've had to be roaming about with them, and it's been quite tiring for an old man like me. I made 43 years old last of this month. 43 years old, imagine that. But I'm glad for the age because I've had a lot of friends who ain't made it to this age. On this little island, we've had a lot of crime, gun crime and shit like that. And a lot of dudes I know fell victim to that. So, as a 43-year-old man, I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm feeling good. And today, 40 years old, DT3, that's a blessing, DT3. That's a blessing. So anyway, today we're going to just break down, we're going to talk about the aftermath of the Day of Reckoning, big card out in Saudi Arabia. Bunch of boxers went there, light heavyweights, cruiserweights. For me, I didn't get to see the card live. John Deely going to be 48 in May. This is a man who is still doing round off backflips, no hands push-ups. 48. Hey, there you go. So we want to talk about this card that happened. I didn't get to see the card live. I was out with the kids doing their performances. When I came back, I made sure to use my ways and means to watch the entire card. What's up, EIF Boxing? And I want to let in everybody early. If you want to get in on the link, I want to talk to y'all because most of y'all saw the card live. I saw the fights also, but there was a lot that happened on the card, and there's been some consequences after. There's been some consequences for the real heavyweight rankings, and there's been consequences for certain people's reputations. There's been consequences for certain people's reputation. A lot of people been talking tough in the build-up, talking all that tough shit, and all them tough talk people, none of them backed it up. All them people that was talking tough, none of them backed that shit up. Some people's rankings for belts went up. Some people's rankings in life went down. You know what I'm saying? Because of how they reacted after. For some people, it's been really messy after. Some people have embarrassed themselves. Some people have done themselves a lot of honor. So I want to talk to whoever want to come on the link early, because I'm not going to be here long. And we want to talk about the fights, and I want to talk about what happened after. The fallout, the aftermath, the toxicity. Just give me a second. Anybody want to get on with me? There's the link. I don't have a bunch of spots. I only have basic, so it's only like 6 people could get on. So hit the link and let's talk about this shit if you got time. You know what I'm saying? First, we want to talk about, I don't know if you got you the whole card or whatever, but once again, Filip Hrgović has a really easy touch. I don't know of another heavyweight that's been brought along in a stranger way than Filip Hrgović. He's one in matchroom. Well, he's really Wasserman, but he's had a lot of light touches in his career. Lot of light touches. But he's an IBF mandatory. Good day, Mr. Deely.
Good afternoon, Congo. Good morning. Not sure what it is your time.
Afternoon. It's 12:10 my time.
Oh, okay. It's only 4:10 here. So
ERF Boxing's coming on. ERF Boxing, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Good evening, everyone. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody.
Peace. So, Dev reckoning just happened. There's been consequences. There's been fallout. There's been a lot of shit happen. I want to hear from John Deely. What was maybe the things that happened on the card and happened after that was more striking to you, John? Go ahead.
well, I'm going to start off with one of the more minor fights because I was really enjoyed the fight, which was Ajit Kabayel. Again, dealing with a hype job. I think people get so sucked into power that they never question who they're actually knocking out. Because I'm still having people argue the toss with me that Deontay Wilder's power is what it's been cracked up to be. And I've never believed in it. Because if you look at the quality of opposition he knocked out, they're the same people Dillian White was knocking out on the come out. They're the same people Joseph Parker was knocking out when he had a massive he had a knockout streak, Parker did start off with. Obviously, AJ had a massive knockout streak for quite a long time. He actually maintained his against better opposition. But that quality of opposition counts because those guys are less durable. And we've found now with Deontay Wilder, against top 10 knockout opposition, his knockout ratio is terrible. So I think on a broader perspective, people need to actually start questioning who these guys are knocking out, because Arslan Makhmudov was just assumed he was going to kill Ajit Kabayel and that Ajit wouldn't stand the chance. So there's that. I think people have really got to look at resume. I think that's one of the other big eye-openers with this, because if you have two guys fight each other in a bubble and we base them off being the best purely off fighting each other, it shows what a flawed system that really is. And as for certain people's poor character, I mean, I think Wilder's poor character has been on display for a long time. But he had a lot to say about people behind their back. And he's still got a lot to say about people behind their back now. There's been a bit of claims that if he had beaten Parker, even though AJ had signed to fight him over 2 fights, AJ was going to retire instead of fight him because AJ's so afraid of him. That's madness. It's absolute madness. Somebody proved me very wrong on the card. Daniel Dubois, I thought he'd capitulate under the pressure. And he showed some fortitude, he showed some backbone, and he bit down his gum shield and he got the job done. Which was, again, nice to see the people who've got a lot to say but can't back it up. So there's some initial thoughts, Kong.
Thank you, Mr. Deely. ERF Boxing, give me your broad perspective. Now we've had a chance, everything has settled. You know, the stew has now been made and eaten. Give me your broad perspective to start off with of the card, the aftermath, the consequences. Broad perspective.
Well, broad perspective, the card, I enjoyed it. I thought it worked out quite well. The first 4 to 5 fights, having knockouts. There wasn't really, apart from the Kabayel fight, it wasn't really competitive. Those guys should have been knocked out, and they did get in there and did what they had to do. Kabayel, like John said, surprised me. I even thought when he got him hurt, he was very smart to keep going to the body. He did really, really well. Daniel Dubois, I did pick him to win by late stoppage. So as you can imagine, whilst I was watching it, I was screaming at the TV for him to keep punching. But he did show a lot, because whilst I was watching it, after the second round, I thought to myself, Daniel's going to get stopped because he looks tired. He's breathing out of his mouth already. There, I'll leave the AJ and the Wilder stuff till later, but the aftermath, all you can see is Big Baby Miller was always what he was, a loudmouth American who can't back anything up unless he's on peds. Wilder, that doesn't surprise me at all. Like John said, I've never been hyped on his power. Him and Tyson Fury's, both their careers is predicated on each other. Without each other, those two careers have literally nothing, because let's be honest, the Vlad fight for Fury, he had no hype off of that. So his whole career is literally predicated on Deontay Wilder, and Deontay Wilder is predicated on him. The concept that nobody could beat Wilder unless it's Tyson Fury was always stupid. I'm annoyed the fact he lost, even though I'm not surprised, because I wanted AJ to finally just put a nail in the coffin for this guy, and for people to actually realize the person they was questioning constantly about mental state and mind state and not being good was the wrong person all along. It was always Wilder who was the hype job.
My perspective on the card is that I thought it was really well done. Personally, for me, I am not, I guess I can't speak like I'm some great authority on any boxing great cards, but for me, it was probably the best collection of fighters I've seen on one card before in my life. Again, I'm from the Caribbean, so I probably didn't get to see as much boxing as, you guys from the UK or America. But for me, it was the best collection of people I've seen on a card. And that could only have been done because somebody else was paying for it. And somebody else made promoters work together, right? I do understand that some of the fights were not competitive. We're talking Hrgović versus Demori. I don't know whether Demori had to have been driving like a tomato truck in Slovenia somewhere, defying somewhere to come fight Filip Hrgović. Junior Fa, who I don't know how he keeps getting these opportunities. His claim to fame is giving Joseph Parker some trouble in the amateurs, and might have beaten Joseph Parker in their pro fight. And this will now lead me to Joseph Parker a little later on in terms of his career trajectory and how his career has gone, which is a very strange career, very up and down type of career. Jai Opetaia fought somebody who I guess John and ERF would probably know, Ellis Zoro, and I really, really, really thought Jai Opetaia might have killed that man in the ring. I mean, he slapped him to sleep, head bounced off the ring, and it looks like a real disgusting knockout. I thought Jai Opetaia killed this man. Daniel Dubois and Big Baby Miller. Let me just shout out Daniel Dubois first. I again, like most people, I thought he would have really wilted, but then after I saw Big Baby Miller come in at 328 pounds. What's up, Tony's Reviews? What's up? 320 something pounds. I was like, ain't no way he could keep up that. I know it would have been hard for him for Daniel to keep away, because when a man is that big, he's taking up half the ring himself. It's like fighting a big boar hog or a big cattle in the ring, and you're trying to escape this cow in a pen. And Daniel Dubois held his ground. He kept his guts, and I really, really am impressed by the young man. So again, he now has improved his standing in the eyes of people, but also in the standings in boxing. So it's interesting to see where he goes from here. Frank Warren is a wizard in maneuvering his fighters into title shots, even though some of them they don't probably deserve it. But I'm quite sure Daniel will be fighting for some kind of title next, some sort of regular belt or something next. I'm not going to talk about Dimitri Bivol and Lyndon Arthur. I thought the fight was really annoying. I wanted Lyndon Arthur to just take a knee because he just stood in the ring and just, I don't know if he was fainting. I don't know if he was scared. I don't know if he was trembling. He just looked awful. And he prolonged the fight.
Well,
He should have picked. Go ahead.
Before the fight, when the fight was announced, even at the weigh-in, I said on a space that Lyndon's mindset doesn't really look like he wants to be there. He seems like they've rang him and he's like, you know what, I'm a go, and I'm just trying not to get knocked out.
That's a good point.
And basically that is exactly what he did. His mindset, just how he carried himself. He didn't look confident. He didn't look like he belonged even on that stage. Just how he was. I know he's a calm person, but he was. He just really didn't seem himself. He seemed like he was there to get beat, but not to get knocked out, and that's how he fought.
I think Lyndon's recently had a kid. Again, I think he's got a few. I think he recently had another one. So I felt like he just went for the money.
Yeah,
it was short
like
notice. It was all short notice, wasn't it, for everybody?
Yeah, I think everyone on that card, barring I think everyone on that card, barring probably AJ, did it for the money, but at last minute. While in all the talk that they talked about Wallin, and he was. And this is what I say, Tyson Fury, that night was probably one of the worst nights for Tyson Fury's career because his resume got exposed on that night. His best win got exposed on that night against someone, AJ. People don't even class Parker as one of AJ's best wins. That's how the fight went. It was so one-sided. It wasn't really, it didn't catch fire. He just got beat.
Sorry, I was on the phone. So Tony said he had one leg. I don't know what leg he had. He listen. This card is an example of why you should have always, as a boxer, you got to stay ready. You got to stay ready, right? You can't be coming up in 300 and something pounds and talking, oh, I took this fight on 4 weeks notice. Big Baby Miller, if you didn't fight December, what weight would you have been next year? You would have been like 400 pounds because you didn't lose an ounce from when you fought Lucas Brown. You got fatter. So if you didn't fight this time, you would have weighed in next year at 400 and something pounds maybe. You got to stay ready, right? But for me, I thought the card was nice. It was a really good event, best collection I've seen. And we want to move on now to the co-mains. What's up, Fight Doctor? We want Lisa Bales. How you doing? We want to talk about the co-mains. We want to talk about Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. ERF, I want to start with you. Joseph Parker pretty much 12-rounded Deontay Wilder. I was very disappointed.
Yeah, it was.
Hold on. It was performance because personally, I don't see how a man who's been boxing since the Olympics or whatever, some years ago, and he got 12-rounded, former world champion. You explain to me how a man got 12-rounded at this point in his career. ERF Boxing, go ahead. What happened here? ERF Boxing duck out? Oh, come on. John Dealey, explain to me a 12-round wash it. Go ahead. Is it me? Did the stream go off? Hey, y'all hear me? I'm not hearing nobody else. So must be the stream went down.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. So the first place I wanted to start with was activity. Because Wilder had about one round in 2 years, coming off 2 back-to-back bad losses that had taken a long time as well, hadn't they? So that is a long time to be out of the ring. That's the first thing. The second thing is, this is a man who's never, ever really trained hard and has made a point of the fact that he doesn't really train hard. I find it very odd, Wilder's weight fluctuations. He was 20 pounds lighter than when he fought Tyson Fury for their third fight, wasn't he? I don't understand why a man in their middle 30s is losing all of that muscle mass, because he's never ever, he never gets fat. So he's just withered away. And it does raise some question marks about him, but I don't know if this is the place to discuss those. And on top of that, having a total yes man in your corner is not going to push you to make you better. So there's all those issues. But also, I think the fact is, Wilder's been fighting in a total bubble. He's got virtually no common opponents with anybody. He's got a couple. He's got Brazil, he's got Molina, and that's about it. And they're not really good names on other people's resumes, are they? They're bad names on other people's resumes. Ortiz got beat by Andrew Ruiz as well. It's like, he just was never really that good. I think that's got a lot to do with it. But then you add in the activity, you add in the strange weight fluctuations, you add in Malik Scott. He's not going to tell Deontay Wilder anything Wilder doesn't want to hear. He's not going to push him. He's just there to be a yes man. I don't even know what the plan was to get washed like that, but there was no urgency from Wilder. There was at no point did he think, right, I've got to go for it now. So he's either shot, because he looked gun shy. You know, AJ's had all this criticism, but Wilder's the one who looked gun shy. So I think a lot of it was how bad Wilder is. And I think the other aspect is, if we go back to activity, that was Joseph Parker's 4th fight that year. Joseph Parker, as you said, is very up and down, but he's very up and down in his conditioning. His weight goes up and down. He was so fat when he fought Joe Joyce, and that did not work for him at all. That type of weight, the game plan was wrong. The weight was too much, and I think having the better activity has at least helped him maintain his weight at a better place, and has made him sharper. He's always had skills. He's just not the biggest and doesn't really hit that hard either. But his thing has always been skill, hasn't it, with Parker? So I think that actually the skill level disparity was on show for people to see as well.
I think you're right. But personally, the inactivity really hurt him. But then that's his fault. You see, when he beat Helenius,
that's not an excuse.
Right.
That's completely Wilder's fault, because he's had all this opportunity to have a fight. He's had plenty of chances to have a fight. Why isn't he fighting?
I don't know. It's interesting. You see, because it's not like he doesn't have people to fight. There are people to fight. People to fight over there. There's Ruiz, who was there in the crowd. There's Frank Sanchez, who fought on the card. There's quite a few people he could have fought.
Well, look at Joshua. He said he wanted to fight 3 times this year. He got a lot of criticism for the fights that he had. Some of the performances were not scintillating, but he put the work in. He humbled himself. He took pay cuts. He didn't have pay-per-view fights. He fought lesser opposition. He took lesser purses, but he got in the ring, and he benefited from it.
You see, but then that's something that maybe Wilder was not willing to do, where he wanted to fight for a certain amount or not at all.
That's why it's not an excuse in activity.
So somebody like Joseph Parker, who are, again, as we said, just fought. He fought some guy called Simon Keane or something before this.
Yeah.
He fought some guy like that. He fought small fights down in Australia. You know, he just fought wherever he could fight. You to keep, as I said, keep yourself busy, keep yourself active, keep yourself healthy and strong. I'm disappointed with seeing Deontay Wilder take a 12-round boxing lesson. Hold on there. I got somebody here who I haven't spoken to in a long time. DT3 the Boon, man. What's up, brother?
What's up with my boy Iron Kong? What they do with the folk?
Hey, man. Hey, I just hear talking about the consequences and repercussions of this card. Anything you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to talk about?
I mean, it was a hell of a card, man. It was a beautiful night. I mean, it was a card that we haven't seen like that in a very long time. I was actually happy to see Wilder and Joshua on the same card. I still say that Dubois Miller was the fight of the night. That was my favorite fight to watch and my favorite fight to call. It was my first time really calling a fight of that magnitude, so it was a great privilege to do that on my boy Andrew Tucker channel. Shout out my boy Andrew Tucker World and J. Rule's Theory. But I don't think Wilder wanted to win that fight. And I don't say that like to talk bad about Wilder. It's just that Wilder goes forward. We already know Wilder don't fight good on the back foot. That's not his strong suit. His strong suit is going forward, shooting the jab cross, easy work, knock you out. That's usually what he does. And he didn't do that really at all in this fight. I could see if he was actually doing it, actually putting the effort into really trying to knock Joseph Parker out, but Wilder wasn't even trying to knock Joseph Parker out. He wasn't even trying to knock Joseph Parker back. He wasn't trying to push him back, do anything with him. He was pretty much just walking back, letting Joseph Parker get off on him and hold him in the clinch. And it's like, that's not Wilder's game. So I was a little disappointed in how Wilder fought in a sense, because Wilder don't even fight like that. But at the same time, it really shows you that if you prepare for his right hand, then he's beatable, because that's what Joseph Parker was looking for every time he was coming in. And he mummified that in the clinch, because when Wilder did throw his right hand, he wasn't landing it because Joseph Parker was getting under him and holding him in the clinch. So Joseph Parker did do what was necessary to win the fight. I just felt like Wilder should have let his hands go, and he didn't. So, I mean, I don't think Wilder wants it anymore. I don't think he really is in there to really win anything. I think he's done whatever it was he was going to do in the sport. You know what I'm saying? Hats off to him for doing it, but I don't think he's going to do anything significant at this point. And the excuses is just kind of like to be expected from Wilder. If you don't expect to hear excuses of this magnitude from Wilder, then you don't know Wilder.
We're gonna get to them to that part just now, because anyway. So Joseph Parker is somebody who has had different issues in his career in terms of Boom. Could you mute for me, brother? Yeah. So different issues in his career. John said, game plans don't always right. His own dedication sometimes don't always seem to be there. But he came into this fight very dedicated. A lot of people's reputations not going to recover because they talked all this tough shit. Deontay Wilder talked a lot of tough shit. He was talking about Anthony Joshua. He gonna knock out Joseph Parker. He gonna do this. He gonna do that. I think he was asked about the inactivity. He was told that Joseph Parker fought like 4 times, and he said that's not gonna be no problem for him, even though he hasn't been active. That's a lie. I don't know if sometimes Deontay Wilder is fooling himself, or I don't know, or if somebody else is fooling him, because you can't tell me, because this December, before the fight, the clock had already started ticking on 2 years Deontay Wilder was out of the ring. He last fought October something last year. So the clock had already started ticking on another year. So if this card didn't come up, when would have Deontay Wilder fought? Because there's no more showtime, right? And then I saw him, because when he came to the pressers, he had a lot of clothes on. You only really saw Wilder when he was doing the what do you call it? The pre-fight workouts or whatever, the public workouts. And then I saw just how skinny he was. You saw his legs, how small they were. Then you come to the weigh-in and you see, wow, this guy really is small, 213 pounds. So I don't know how a 213-pound man could push back anybody. And that's an issue. How could Malik Scott be training Deontay Wilder and not telling Wilder, look here, man, we got to put some functional weight on you? Because remember, he had a lot of weight on him for the Tyson Fury 3rd fight. But it's not functional weight. It's not weight that makes sense, because it's not down in his legs. It's just in his upper body. And that's an issue. You can't be 213 pounds and push nobody back. That's impossible. And I'm not understanding just what kind of camp he had. There was no way Deontay Wilder could have been in camp doing anything. All of these guys don't have nutritionists. They have physical coaches. They have all this stuff. I'm interested to know who exactly is in Wilder's camp is taking care of all this shit for him. Because it couldn't be just Malik Scott, because as John Dealey said, Malik Scott can't tell Deontay Wilder nothing. Malik Scott threw a fight for Deontay Wilder. He threw a fight for Deontay Wilder. He fixed the fight. He took a dive. How he gonna tell Deontay Wilder anything?
He don't. It's Jay Diaz. Jay Diaz is still running the things behind the scenes. Well, I didn't even, me and Jay Rule's Theory was wondering that when we was watching the damn fight. We was like, wait a minute, what is Malik Scott telling him? And it all came full circle when they showed who was talking to Wilder in between rounds, because we started watching that after this, and it was Jay Diaz between round 7 or round 8. We went to Wilder's corner, and Malik Scott just standing there. He's literally just standing there in front of Wilder, and Jay Diaz is just in Wilder's ear, just talking. And then you notice every round you see Malik Scott in there talking to him. So Malik Scott ain't doing nothing. And then you got to think, it makes perfect sense. Why would you take advice from a motherfucker you were supposedly knocked out or took a dive for you? That dude is not teaching you nothing. This dude got rid of Mark Breland. Mark Breland can actually teach you some shit, but he got rid of him. So Malik Scott can't teach Wilder nothing. He ain't gonna teach Wilder nothing. The person that's really doing all the shit is Jay Diaz behind the scenes. He's behind all the little nutrition, the training, everything. It's Jay Diaz. Malik Scott not doing shit. He just the dude on the he just the dude in the forefront. He the forerunner. He the dude they putting out there to talk. That's all. He ain't really doing shit. And he just making it look good behind the scenes, holding the mitts for Wilder and shit like that. Had me fooled for a minute. I was like, wow, this really what these motherfuckers is doing out here. But yeah, it ain't nobody with JD. It's the same old program. It's just the same shit. It's just different people doing it. Different people doing it, Colin. The same thing that was going on with Mark Breland and all that, how they was trying to do that thing. It's the same program. It's just different people doing it, man.
Go ahead, John. Oh, I'm not hearing John. But during the fight, I'm watching this fight, and I'm just saying to myself, I'm not understanding what's happening here. Deontay Wilder, his jab's gone. He used to have a jab because I remember seeing him use that with Bormain Stavern. He used that. One thing he always had, and I was on Raphael Dawkins' show last night, and as Rafi said, the one thing Deontay Wilder pretty much had that you could count on was a 1-2. He had a stiff 1-2.
That's what I said. It was like
Jab
you didn't see
straight,
that shit at
jab
all.
straight. And I didn't see no 1-2. I didn't see nothing. He didn't try to work the body on Parker. If Joseph Parker is ducking under your punches to his head, then you got to do something else. You got to come up under him then to make him stand up. Didn't see none of that. And I'm just really interested to figure out what was going. Did this man just show up for a check? Because if that's all, in my opinion, then there shouldn't be no more checks for you. You can't pay for this and then get that. Come on, man. Tony's Reviews, what's up?
What's going on?
Talk to me.
So I actually thought Wilder was going to win until I saw him in the ring, and he looked. This is the worst I've ever seen Wilder look. You got to understand, there's a lot of issues, fundamental issues with Wilder. Hold on one second. My bad about that. One of the biggest issues that I see with Deontay Wilder is, you know how you have certain fighters and they say they fight to the level of their opponent. They look worse against worst opponents, but look spectacular against great opponents. That's one thing that Wilder has always lacked. I don't know where you place him and how good he is, because when you put him in there with the top tier fighters, I mean, we've seen two now. He's looked horrible. He looked horrible in all three against Tyson Fury, and he looked horrible against Joseph Parker. But if you put him in there with subpar opposition, he looks spectacular. He looks like a killer. So he's somewhere in between B and A. I don't know where you would place him, but the thing about him is this. When you put a B-level opponent in front of him, he just knocks them over. They don't put up any resistance. So when you have guys that you're bringing through the rankings and they're doing that building phase where they actually have fights, where they learn and they move and they have guys that move with them, he's had none of that because he just blows them out the water. So you have that first off, that he doesn't fight to the level of his opposition. He just blows away low opposition. So he's really had no training leading up to high opposition. The other thing is he's too small. I've said it for a while. And whenever he put on weight in the wrong place. He's always had a bigger upper body. If you saw Deontay Wilder from the waist up, you would assume that he's somewhere in between, I don't know, high 220s, low 240s. But then you see them legs and you realize, oh shit, he doesn't weigh anything. So whenever he got up in his 230s for Fury, it was all upper body up, which was already decent sized. He has no legs. He has no base. And then he went back down to his low 200s. I think he came in at 213. But it's like, I don't understand it. Then when you look at the time off, I didn't really think that was going to be an issue because he always looks like he's in shape.
Me
I
either.
mean, just because you look like you're in shape doesn't mean you're actually in shape. It's two different things, but he never looks like he fluctuates where he gets fat, where he gets soft. He's always pretty lean with muscle. So I figured he would be good. With Malik Scott, like DT3 said, I was completely fooled because I was convinced that they was working on shit, seeing him on the pads. Even whenever he knocked out Hellenius in the first round, it was a check hook, which we
See?
never seen him do on the back foot.
Meet that talk to him. Talk to him.
So I assumed that like all these things was coming to fruition. It was coming to the forefront that they had been working on all of this. But when he got in there with Joseph Parker, I saw a guy who was confused, who didn't know how to let his hands go, because when he tried to jab, when he tried to throw the straight, Parker would just slip it and hit him with an overhand. And it had him confused to the point of where he was docile. He wouldn't let his hands go. Now in the 12th and final round, he finally let his hands go and he looked his best in the 12th round. But he didn't know what to do. He was a deer in headlights. He didn't know how to combat a guy who was moving under him, to the side of him, in front of him, to the other side of him. He didn't know what to do. And my thing is this. if Wilder is what he said is true, that he's going to come back in 2024 and he's going to be more active, he's got to fire everybody. He's got to go to a coach that can actually coach him, and he's got to get out of his own head and listen. Because at this rate, he'll continue to knock over low opposition, but every time he steps up, it's going to look the same. It's going to look the same. He's going to get what they call exposed because he's going to look bad anytime he steps in there with somebody who's high quality.
I've got a couple of points I'd like to bring up on that. So, how would you rate Bermain Stavern in their first fight?
Are you asking me?
Yep.
No, I've always said Stavern was trash.
Because Wilder consistently landed the right hand on Stavern, and
Stavern.
Stavern went 12 rounds with him. I watched the fight again recently, just because I've always questioned Wilder's power personally, and that's one of my big question marks: is how could this guy land on Stavern for 12 rounds, a man that had been knocked out by Demetrius King before they met, and Wilder couldn't put him away. And then if you go and look at the Juhaupas fight, Juhaupas was stopped on his feet 10 rounds in. So he didn't just blow Juhaupas away. He had 10 rounds against him. Molina was round 9. Or was it 10? It's quite late on. Spilka, was that 10 or 11? Wilder put in rounds against lower opposition. He just didn't learn anything from it because he believed that if he touches them, they're going to get knocked out. And I think a lot of his opponents believe that, which is why they didn't try and put it on him. A lot of his opponents made the mistake of trying to sit on the outside and get a points victory, when really Wilder's biggest defect is probably his chin. And nobody really pushed for that until Fury fought him. Despite the fact that Stacey McKinley, had put out a video in 2017 that the way to beat Wilder is to step to him, get inside his reach, because you take his power away. That had been out there for years.
Well, the thing about Wilder is he's not a hard puncher. He doesn't have a lot of power. To me, that's a myth. Deontay Wilder's power is not generated by pure strength and force. It's his speed, his velocity.
Right,
Yeah,
okay,
that's it.
Tony. It isn't that he hasn't
Hold
got
on,
power.
John. Hold on,
But
John.
hold on.
John. I didn't cut you off. Just listen
Well,
to me.
all right,
bro.
but then if you're gonna put words into my mouth that I didn't,
I didn't say that. I didn't put no words in your mouth. I didn't say you stated anything. What I stated was what I was stating. So back to what I was saying. I do not believe Deontay Wilder has a lot of power, meaning I don't believe he has heavy hands. Somebody like Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, etc., they have a lot of power because if they hit you with a jab, it hurts you. It doesn't matter what punch they hit you with, it hurts you. Deontay Wilder, his power comes from his velocity, his wind up, his speed. So that would only play
Yeah.
to what you were saying, that if you get close, he can't wind up. He can't recoil. So he doesn't have that explosion to let all that speed go. You're taking away his power because he has he can't pull his arm all the way back to get that speed gathered up. That's why I agree with you. If you let me finish that, if you step to him, you take away that dangerous hand because you take away his speed. He has no room to explode.
Um, hey, Boom Man, you got anything to add to this? What? Because I want to move on to Joshua and them because I want to get into this stuff after this.
Well, more so, yeah. For Wilder, yeah, it's always he catch you at the end of his punches. That's most of his knockouts be, is usually him catching you at the end of the punch. He has to literally get all the torque, the full extension, everything to land his right hand for it to be effective. And when you way you take that away from him is you get under it and you stay on the inside. That's why I was mad with Joseph Parker not staying on the inside consistently, especially when Wilder kept crossing his feet. That was pissing me off. That's a fundamental mistake when you move and you do not cross your feet. You just don't do that, because then if somebody was to charge you at that moment, you can get caught off balance and fall and all the shit. He can even sneak a knockdown if he catch you with a punch in the fight. I've seen it done. But at the same time, we already know that when Wilder fights top opposition, it has been known for years the way to beat Wilder. It's not a secret. It's not like in Pandora's box how to beat Deontay Wilder. You know what I'm saying? It's actually fairly simple to beat Deontay Wilder. If you're a decent level fighter, you know what you're doing in there, you're gonna get that man problems. It's just what it is. But yeah, go ahead, Kong, move on. I'm not tripping.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on to the last fight, and then after that, we want to talk about the consequences and repercussions for people's reputations and the standings in boxing. So we want to quickly just touch on the Anthony Joshua. For me, it's not a lot really to say because I pretty much Anthony Joshua walked through Otto Wallin like he wasn't there, and Otto Wallin was talking a lot of tough shit. Again, he's another one who was talking a lot of tough shit about how people is weak and they're mentally gone and all right, bro, no problem. I remember Anthony Joshua telling him at the initial presser, the announcement, I'm gonna fuck you up. Just understand that. You keep talking all this tough shit, I'm gonna F you up. That's real. Right? I wanna just talk to the people who seem to be giving Ben Davison all this credit. Let me be clear. Ben Davison was working with Joshua for a few months while he was working with Derek James. Joshua has had multiple coaches through his career. He's had people he's learned from a lot of different people. So I know everybody want to give Ben Davison all his credit. But let's pump the brakes here a little bit. He did look good. Looked really good with Otto Wallin, I must say. I mean, he absolutely demolished Otto. He looked fluid, he looked fast, he looked strong. So I don't really have a lot to say other than congratulations to him because there's not a lot to say because the fight didn't last. Well, it went into maybe the second half, kind of, but it wasn't a lot really to say about it other than Anthony Joshua simply walked through Otto Wallin, a man who almost punched the eye off of Tyson Fury, gave him 40-something stitches in his eye. And there's not really a lot to say from me for that. So I want to let y'all just get at some time. Let me start with Boone. Go ahead.
Well, I thought AJ was making some mistakes at first. In the first round, I thought he was making a mistake, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about. When you fight a southpaw, it's usually the battle with the lead hand or the lead foot. And one thing I noticed early, Anthony Joshua was not trying to take the dominant of keeping his lead foot on the outside of Otto Wallin's foot or keeping his hands on the outside of Otto Wallin. He was not doing that. And I was getting irritated with him for not doing that until the fight started progressing. And I realized that Anthony Joshua just didn't give a damn about none of that. He was just there to bully this nigga and beat the shit out of him. And I was like, well, goddamn, AJ, where has this been for the last like 4 or 5 fights? Well, where the fuck this motherfucker in? We needed this AJ when you fought Usyk the last 2 goddamn times. Like, where was this guy? Maybe if you would have brought this guy into them Usyk fights, you might would have did something a little different, buddy. But yeah, he just basically went in there to bully Otto Wallin and beat the shit out of him and go home and eat dinner. That's pretty much what I saw, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I saw.
Hey, John, you all right there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you keep going in and out for some reason. Go ahead, talk to me.
Okay. Well, there's an interesting video out there that are you all right with me naming a different channel?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, Boxing Beats and Rhymes put out an interview with Ali Bashir about how to fight a southpaw. And he says it gets a bit overstated, the outside foot position, that it isn't important to actually fence for that foot position as much as people think it is, which is an interesting take on that, because I know the perceived wisdom is you need to have your foot outside the southpaw's foot, lead foot, to get dominant position. But in that fight, I felt it's the first time I've seen Anthony Joshua actually look relaxed and focused for a long time. Whether that's down to Ben Davidson, whether that's because he's fighting a guy he's fought twice and beat twice in the amateurs and sparred him as well, or maybe he just put everything together, I don't know. Because it wasn't seek and destroy Joshua that was defensively irresponsible. He was defensively responsible in there, but he was aggressive. So he's kind of actually found for me where he needs to sit with his style. And maybe it's because he's been working hard and he's been trying to get better. And if you keep putting the hard work in and you keep putting the practice in and you keep doing the right things, eventually it all comes together. So maybe that's what it is. But it was a good performance. And I knew that, well, in chatting to Joshua, was going to make it a worse night for him, which is what happened.
Tony.
Yeah, I looked at AJ like roadkill before this fight. He was there for the taking. His last several fights, he looked very hesitant to let his hands go, looked very unnerved in the pocket. And the AJ that we saw against Otto Wallin, we have not seen in years and years and years. So I would say that we haven't seen it since the first Andrew Ruiz fight, to be honest with you. Puller fight, I don't even really count that. But yeah, I would say that this AJ hadn't shown up since the Andy Ruiz one fight. And I think Ben Davison has proven himself to be a good coach. He brought Tyson Fury back from the breaks. He just worked with Anthony Joshua, gave Anthony Joshua's best performance in years. He also worked with Devin Haney, and he's turned around Josh Taylor as well. So, I mean, I think the dude has got a claim to be a very good trainer. As far as AJ goes, he got his head off the line, which is something that he normally doesn't do. He looked more fluid. He was setting up shots and counterpunching. Like everything he did was just good. And he was aggressive from round one on. He didn't take time to get into the fight. And he just looked better. Otto Wallin, I thought would be able to beat him because he's a southpaw like Usyk. And if AJ fought like he did against Jermaine Franklin, where he was just going to throw a jab, a straight, then hold on for 80% of the fight, then I thought Otto would be able to outwork him. But Otto got completely outclassed. He got dominated, and he quit in the corner. So you couldn't ask any more from AJ. Yeah, looked his best I've seen in years.
I agree with all that. Everybody made some great points. I want to move on to the repercussions of this card. Some people's reputation took a big hit, and some people's reputation went sky high. Somebody like Daniel Dubois, quitter, doesn't have the heart for it. You know, all this. Come through a lot of adversity, you know what I mean, fight off a bull hog in the ring, and got his hands raised. Somebody like Joseph Parker, who's had a career of just a lot of valleys, and I wouldn't say peaks. Well, he had a peak when he was a champion, but you know, he never really hit the heights of the heights. This fight was more important than any fight. This was bigger than any fight Joseph Parker has ever had. This has done more good for him than even winning the WBO belt. I mean, and then you have, Anthony Joshua, like Tony said, a lot of people looking at Joshua as roadkill. Like he was like, you know, pretty much this is Joshua just kind of petering out his career. You know, he not really into it no more. And some young person or some wilder might come and knock him out and just, you know, get rid of it. Suddenly, Anthony Joshua's reputation has again taken a spike. And then you have the unfortunate situation with Mr. Deontay Wilder. I want to read a quote here from Michael Benson. I'm not going to. I can't read all of them because it's just too much. And this quote has to do with him fighting Joseph Parker. Quote, "My timing was off because of inactivity. I'm disappointed because I know I'm a way better fighter than him. I hurt him a few times, but certain shots I didn't take. It was hesitation and I couldn't understand why. He has no business beating me at all, not even on a magnificent day for him. He didn't do nothing. Neither of us really did anything." We want to start with that quote first, and we're going with Tony.
Well, I disagree 100%. He did a lot because he hurt Wilder a couple of times in the fight. But I've always said Wilder has a lot of heart and a very good chin, and he proved it because even though he was caught, I think it was a counter left hook that stunned him really bad, and he bounced against the ropes, he recovered quite well. So I disagree. Parker was doing a lot. He was evading all the shots. Inactivity, that's always a concern. Ring rust is real. You see it all too often that guys stay out of the ring or they're not that active and they get beat by people they shouldn't get beat by. So is that a valid excuse? Maybe, but I didn't really see ring rust being the issue. Normally, ring rust is when a guy throws a punch, but he's just a just a little too slow. Like it's just off by a hair of a second. Whereas he lets a shot go that would normally land, but it didn't land. What I more or less saw was a guy who looked confused. He looked confused by the movement of Parker and how Parker was getting in on him, going underneath his shots, because he quit letting his hands go. It what to me, ring rusted fighters still let their hands go. They're slower than what they should be. Do they land? Maybe, maybe not. Does the punch have as much effect? Probably not because it's off the mark, but they're still letting their hands go. Wilder completely shut down in this fight up to the 12th round. And I think it's more or less it's just they're not teaching him shit. Like he needs a new crew. That's what he needs. But as far as the statement goes, um, could he have beat Joseph Parker 4 or 5 years ago? I don't know. Based off this performance, I would say Parker looked like he would have beat him anytime they fought. And I just have to base it off of what I see and be honest. But that's pretty much my 2 cents on it.
I want to throw in another quote before I move on to. I want to throw another quote inside there because this interview did a lot of, in my opinion, did a lot of damage to Deontay Wilder. He should have never done this interview. But anyway, Deontay Wilder has insisted that Anthony Joshua, that he still wants to fight Anthony Joshua next, but said AJ will use the Joseph Parker defeat to avoid him. Quote, they really don't want that fight. When I lost, did you see how happy he was coming out? I broke out laughing. I said, that nigga's happy as fuck. I made him able to perform like that. He was like, I ain't gotta fight Wilder. The rumor was he was talking about retiring if I won. March 9th. The fight can still go on, but this is a perfect way for them to get out. Boom.
Well, I already had spoke about what I think about Wilder's recent comments. And pertaining to Wilder's always going to pull some shit out his ass. Never fails. It's just what Wilder do. Actually, if you really want to be technical, Wilder, you fucked up the money. Because if you would have won, yeah, I'm talking about we would have been getting more money. You know what I'm saying? So if anything, I would have wanted you to win the fight because that makes our fight even bigger. But you know, that only makes sense. So there's no reason for me to want you to lose. Plus, when I've already fought all the top opposition in the division and you are one of the supposedly top opponents that's supposed to be in the division that I have not fought, and I do want to fight because Anthony Joshua is really still pushing to become undisputed heavyweight champion, and everybody does want to still see the Wilder Joshua fight, maybe not as much as they used to, but regardless of Wilder losing, there are still actually a handful of people that still want to see the Wilder Anthony Joshua fight. So the fact that if he would have won the fight, it would have been getting talked about so much. And I felt like that was doing the Joseph Parker fight a disservice because not even fight week, but the week before fight week, people was already talking about Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. They're in talks about it, blah, 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 like already looking past Joseph Parker. So I kind of felt like that was a little disrespectful to him to do that shit because you already looking past Joseph Parker, and we already know you don't look past no opponents. You don't do no shit like that. So the fact that they was doing that, I felt that was kind of disrespectful, but they was already planning it. And the fact that Wilder lost is like, bruh, and he's saying this dumb shit, is like, bruh, no, you fucked up the money. You fucked up the money twice at this point. You already turned down $120 million. Now you didn't fuck this shit up. So you just fucking the money up all the way around. That's just what the fuck Wilder do. He just fucks the money up. This is what he does. So, but at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? If it somehow happens, it ain't gonna be worth as much as it was when since everybody been talking about it, and I don't think it's gonna be for nothing. If anything, it'll probably be for Anthony Joshua giving Wilder a title shot or some shit like that.
Let me read two more quotes. Mr. John Dealey here, two smaller quotes, and then we're going to talk about what this interview might have done in terms of Deontay Wilder's mentality and his reputation. So another quote, I've got to find my killer instinct back. I'm too at peace. I'm too happy. When I had that dog in me, nobody had a chance. I will be a two-time heavyweight champion. One more quote for the last before I move to John. Quote, talking about being stunned by Joseph Parker. Quote, he caught me in a dazing moment. I effing zoned out for 1 minute. I don't know what the F happened. The punch came, but it was nothing that hurt. None of his punches fazed me at all. John.
Well, as for none of the punches phasing him, why didn't you throw your hands then? Why didn't you walk him down and just demolish him? I think you stopped throwing your hands because you didn't like what was coming the other way. So that's the first thing. I'm going to go back to a couple of the other quotes about Anthony Joshua looking to avoid the fight. Because Joshua was asked after the Wallin fight if he would fight Wilder next. And he said, well, as far as he understood it, he still could because he'd signed his papers. He's come out and said he will still fight Wilder. He's told Wilder that he should look at what other people on the card have done and get retribution by getting wins and getting back in the game. He pointed out what Daniel had done. And he said Wilder could do the same thing. And he congratulated Joseph Parker to his face, somebody who got knocked out badly last year by Joe Joyce. So AJ's not only said that the Wilder fight could happen next, he says he's not sure, but he signed his part and he'd still fight Wilder. He's actually gone on record and said that after the fight. But I think the whole reason that Wilder's doing this is because he has these acolytes around him. And it hasn't really got a lot to do with boxing. It's like a personality cult. And Wilder believes in his own mythology. He's always drinking his own Kool-Aid. It's why Wilder walks around saying he only has to be perfect for 1 second. It's like, well, actually, Wilder, you don't necessarily take the best punch. I don't really agree with what Tony says about his chin, because Parker's not ever been a big puncher. And he gave you enough that you couldn't really handle it. And as for the last round, I thought when he did let his hands go, Parker beat him up, to be honest. You had to resort to throwing hammer punches on the back of Parker's head because that's all he could do. So all this idea that Parker shouldn't be able to beat him, Parker's punches didn't hurt him, that's part of this whole delusion that Wilder walks around in. This idea that he's only got to be perfect for 1 second. It's like, no, Parker, no, Wilder, if you get hit, you don't take it very well. We saw that with Eric Molina. Like, you were doing some funny dances against Eric Molina. What was it, the 3rd round, 5th round, something? When he got clocked. So he just walks around believing in his own power, which I think is massively overstated, ignoring the fact that he doesn't take the best punch, and glorifying the fact that he has no skill as if he doesn't need it. Well, we found out that all these myths aren't true. And as soon as Wilder gets back amongst his sort of sycophants, they go back to pretending like all of this stuff is true. And the only person it's going to hinder is Wilder, because if you're going to get better, you need to learn from your mistakes. You need to accept your losses, go through it, see what you did wrong, so that you can actually go and work on those shortcomings and try and get better. And if you're not going to do that, then you're never going to get better, which is what we've seen with Wilder and all the excuses. He's exactly an example of how not to be as a man. He's like everything that comes out of his mouth, the things he says he's happy to do with his grandfather, he wants to be pregnant, everything. He's like the perfect example of how not to be a man.
All right. I'm going to say this. Deontay Wilder has proven that he has a chin. Earlier in his career, Luis Ortiz caught him real cleanly, stunned him. You're talking about a guy with over 80% knockout ratio, had him hurt bad, and he stayed on his feet. Then if you want to talk about Joseph Parker was coming off of 2 knockout wins, and I believe Joseph Parker has over a 65% knockout ratio. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I can guarantee he's knocked out over 65% of the opponents he's fought. So yes, the dude has power. Yes, he can hit hard. Yes, he can stop people. Wilder took a clean shot, stayed on his feet, didn't get knocked down, went all 12 rounds, being outgunned and hit all night. So the fact that Wilder doesn't have a chin is just a stupid comment. Moving past that, I don't believe AJ would have ever fought him. I'm saying that right now. I don't believe it at all because Eddie Hearn already came out stating way before that they were going to fight Hrgovic for the IBF title. That's how we found out that Tyson Fury and Usyk, the winner, is going to get stripped. And then Hrgovic is going to be fighting for it. And Anthony Joshua, previous to this fight, the day before this fight, with the black dude who does the face-offs, he was talking to him and saying, well, if I was given the opportunity to fight Deontay Wilder or fight for a championship title, I'm going to take the championship title, which told you he was going to fight Hrgovic for the IBF title regardless if Wilder would have won or not. Now, will we have got the fight after that? I don't know. That's up in the air. But if you're going to ask me, do I really, truly believe that Anthony Joshua was going to get in there if he would have beat Parker? Fuck no. Because they already said he was going to fight for the IBF title. I don't know how much more facts you need other than Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua both saying it out their mouth.
Well, the fact that the fight had been signed and has been back from multiple sources, including Wilder, who said that what Joshua was so desperate to get out of their fight, he was going to retire because he had signed to fight him for 2 fights.
Oh man!
I don't know how much more evidence you need, Tony. I don't need you to agree with me about any of this stuff, but I don't think Wilder has a good chin. I've seen him get banjoed in the amateurs with big gloves and a head guard by Romanov. That's my opinion. I'm quite happy for you to disagree with it.
Hold on.
That's fine. That's absolutely fine, but that's my opinion, which I'm entitled to.
I'm not sure why we're still doing this, but I don't think AJ will. A man signs a contract, reported by Dan Rafael first, that they actually signed the contract for 2 fights, signed the contract. Eddie Hearn had to deny it because that was supposed to be announced on the night. Wilder comes out and they signed the contract. So Eddie Hearn comes out after and says, yeah, we actually did sign the contract to fight. I mean, this was what was going to happen. Yet we're still here saying, I don't know if Anthony Joshua would have fought Deontay Wilder. Why are we still giving life to this foolishness that Deontay Wilder is some ducked fighter? There's some conspiracy that everybody's going to duck Deontay Wilder. The man said, yes, he wants a title shot. Of course, because he don't personalize title shots. It's important to him. But of course he's fight. That's why he signed to fight Deontay Wilder. He signed to fight Deontay Wilder for 2 fights, admitted by Wilder, admitted by Eddie Hearn, reported by Dan Rafael, that they signed to fight him. So if he was going to duck Deontay, he was not going to sign for the fight. So why are we still here saying that he wasn't going to fight?
Have you read the contract?
What?
Have you read the contract?
Tony.
No, I'm asking you, have you read the contract?
The fight for 2 fights was signed for match.
Okay,
I have not read anything.
Okay, so you haven't read the contract. Have you seen the contract?
I haven't seen anything. Neither have you.
Okay, so none of us have seen or read the contract, correct?
So
I just want verification on this. None of us have seen or read it, correct?
No, of course not. None of us have.
Okay. So let me say this. So I'm going by what the dogs say out of their mouth, what they stated out of their mouth. I don't know about this contract. I've never seen it. I've never read it. I don't know what the stipulations are to it. I don't know if it says that the fight happens next or they're signing for a fight that could happen from a year from now from the sign date of that contract. I don't know what it says. All I know is Eddie Hearn and both Anthony Joshua both said that they would be fighting Hrgovic next. That's what I do know. So I don't know what the terms were. I don't know what the stipulations were. I've never seen it. Until you can show me on paper that it says the very next fight that Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder will be in is against each other, then I'm going to go with what they said out of their mouth, that they were going to fight Hrgovic next for the IBF title.
Right, so I've got a simple bullet in the gun for this argument. Wilder said that because Joshua had signed to fight him next, Wilder said that was the reason that he'd heard Anthony Joshua was going to retire. I'm pretty certain that quote is all out there because it was in the interview. The reason that they're putting that rumor out there that Joshua was going to retire is because he had signed to fight Wilder next. Now, that's come from Wilder. So if that's not good enough for you, Tony, then it seems like you only pick and choose when things come out of people's mouths and you don't pay attention to everything else that's said.
Okay, so then you believe Mark Breland spiked his water too, right? Because you believe everything he says. So Breland spiked his water, right?
Why would Wilder
Why would Wilder say his water was spiked?
Hold on a minute. Why would Wilder say that Anthony Joshua signed the contract to fight him for 2 fights next if he hadn't? Why would Wilder be saying that now?
Because his statement, listen to what his statement is. His statement is literally, we signed a contract to fight. He was going to retire. It's to throw dirt on Anthony Joshua's name. It has nothing to do with the fight coming to fruition. It has to do with the fact that allegedly this contract was signed and now Anthony Joshua is going to retire, which is bullshit, to not fight him. So if the end part, hold on, John, if the end part, if we can conclude that Anthony Joshua was not going to retire, that's bullshit, and we know the end of that statement is a lie, then how do we know the beginning of that statement is the truth?
Okay, but why not say something else to disparage Anthony Joshua? It doesn't make any sense.
Again, if half your statement is a lie, then how can I believe the beginning half?
You must be cleverer than the rest of us. You're right. I don't agree with you. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to mine. And I believe the fight was signed, and I don't see why Wilder would say the fight had signed and go to some lengths to prove that Joshua was going to get out of it despite signing him, when he could just say that Joshua was carrying on ducking it.
Because it makes Joshua look bad. By making that statement, it makes Joshua look worse. What he's saying is, had I won, this dude was going to retire. That's what you're missing. What he said, because you can't be quiet while I'm talking, but I can be quiet while you're quiet.
Hold on.
Look, when I talk, he can't be quiet, but whenever I talk, he can't be quiet.
Stop. Tony, finish your statement. John, you go. Go ahead. Tony, finish your statement.
I'm about to finish. He just can't stop getting emotional. But here's the deal. The statement in itself is to degrade and throw dirt on Anthony Joshua. What he's saying is, we signed the contract, but he wasn't going to fight me anyways because he was going to retire. That statement is to make Anthony Joshua look bad, to take the loss off of him. He's deflecting that he lost the fight and saying, well, even if I would have won, this dude was going to retire. So again, I will restate. If half the statement is a fucking lie, then why would we believe the beginning of the statement?
John?
Because multiple sources have confirmed the beginning of the statement. So that's why we believe it. But Tony, I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm giving you my opinion. And I don't agree with you. I don't agree with your argument. I think it's flawed. You don't agree with mine. That's fine. I don't really care. I don't need you to agree with me. I just think you're wrong.
And again, I think you're wrong because Eddie Hearn literally said out of his mouth, the next fight we'll have is for the IBF title. Literally said it out his mouth. If the contract was signed, he would have never made that statement that they were going for Hrgovic next. And guess who they're going for next? Hrgovic. Oh, shit, imagine that. That's the very next fight.
So anyway, I don't want to agree with you, Tony. You know what I'm saying? this whole narrative of people ducking Deontay Wilder, all this skullduggery that's going on around that, it's some diabolical scheme that people are going to duck. I don't believe he still would have fought Wilder and all this foolishness, despite Wilder turning down offers to fight Anthony Joshua in the past, despite Wilder here saying the man signed a contract. Dan Rafael said a contract is signed. Eddie Hearn finally had to come out and admit that, yes, a contract was signed. He couldn't admit it before because they wanted to announce it in the ring. So somehow, everybody else is saying a contract was signed to fight 2 fights next. And the only person saying that, I don't believe that, is you. Let me be clear. I'm not giving Deontay Wilder no passes on this. You understand? There was nobody ducking Deontay Wilder. You can choose to believe what you want. Nobody was ducking Deontay Wilder, never. They didn't duck him 5 years ago. They didn't duck him Saturday gone. You understand? This man is up and down. If he wanted to throw dirt, like John said, he would have never admitted that a contract was. And when he was asked about it when 17 asked him about it, he didn't want to answer. When they asked him, what about this 2-fight deal or whatever, because no, it's a contradiction. On one hand, he's signed to fight me. On the other hand, he's ducking me. But that's him, a walking contradiction. I don't believe none of this nonsense about, I don't believe Anthony Joshua would have fought him anyway. That's just you and whatever bias you have against Anthony Joshua. And that's fine.
Yeah, but here's the problem, Kong. Here's the problem,
Let me finish, man. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me finish, man. Deontay Wilder is making up stories. But the one thing he said that was real was that because other outside sources. That's one thing I do when I do my history lectures and whatnot. Whenever I'm seeking information about something, I look for internal sources. I look for external sources. People reporting on the same event that the subject is about. You look for people talking about the event who were outside looking in, and also people who were inside. So we have 2 things. People on the outside saying, yes, indeed, a contract was signed for 2 fights between them for next. But that's the fight the Saudis want. We also have the inside source of Deontay Wilder letting it slip because he has a tendency to talk too much and let things slip out his mouth. Like when he said, I turned down more money to fight Anthony Joshua than to fight you, Tyson Fury, because he has a way of running his mouth too much and incriminating himself. We have external sources confirming this 2-fight deal and an internal source confirming the 2-fight deal. You're the only one saying you don't believe it. Deontay Wilder found a way to get out of this fight. And then he contradicted him by saying, yeah, he signed the contract, but made up some lie about, he signed the contract, but he would have retired. No one else can corroborate the retiree story, only Deontay Wilder. But people can corroborate this 2-fight deal that was signed for next.
Okay, so again, the 2-fight deal, when does it take place? When is the time span? If you were talking about it being the very next fight, I say prove to me that it said in the contract they were fighting next. Because according to Eddie Hearn, the plan was always Hrgovic. Who are they fighting now? Hrgovic. Who were they fighting before? Hrgovic. Who did AJ say they were fighting next? Hrgovic. So had he fought Deontay Wilder after Hrgovic, maybe that was a possibility. Maybe that's what was in the contract. I have no idea. You have not seen it. I have not seen it. Furthermore, if you want to go by incriminating themselves, Anthony Joshua was the one that gave an interview saying that instead of fighting Otto Wallin, he could have fought Deontay Wilder on this card. But after he had a meeting with him, Eddie Hearn, and I think he said the suits, I'm not sure, that they decided not to fight Deontay Wilder when they could have. So if you're talking about incriminating yourself, then you need to add all the words into context. The bottom line is this: whether a contract was signed or not, I do not believe, based off of what AJ said and Eddie Hearn said, that it would be the very next fight. I believe the plan was always Hrgovic, and if they both had won, AJ would be still fighting Hrgovic next. Now, after Hrgovic is up in the air who they fight, I have no idea. But I will not change my opinion that Hrgovic was always the plan.
All right, that's cool, no problem. But anyway, so we have the repercussions of this and the consequences of this and whatnot. Deontay Wilder did this interview with 78 Sports. In my opinion, I don't know who is advising him or if anybody is. They need to tell Deontay to stay off of these platforms, because anytime he goes on these platforms, talks all this tough shit, talks too much, sounds like a complete idiot. I want to advise all young fighters, do not take up with these channels who have a sycophantic way about worshiping you and all this, because they will make you believe your own bullshit. I see Bill Haney sitting down, having dinner with a group of these same people who have created this personality cult around certain fighters. Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder, Tank Davis, and all of this. I want to talk about the repercussions of this, because this interview is all over. It's in UK media. It's in boxing scene. It's all over socials with these quotes from Deontay, and people are laughing at him. People are laughing. I need y'all as two grown men to speak on. I hope y'all got a chance to listen to the interview in its fullness, because I have. And it was a very poor listen. You have a man who basically is preying on Deontay Wilder's insecurities, stroking his ego, fueling his delusions, and it's making Deontay Wilder a worse person and a worse fighter, because these people are telling him, nah, champ, you don't need to do all that. They're agreeing that he don't need to improve. So instead of telling him, look, man, you're going to have to do certain things in your career. Yet instead of that, nah, let me just stroke your ego. Talking dumb shit about Anthony Joshua was happy when I lost. Happy. The man just won his fight. Of course he's happy. But somehow you make that about you. John Dealey, delusions, insecurities, all of that. Talk to me.
Well, it's what I went back to earlier. You can't get better. You can't improve until you identify your weaknesses. And so if you're going to surround yourself with people that aren't going to tell you what you're doing wrong, you're limiting yourself to stay where you are. You can't improve. And, that's what we're seeing with Deontay Wilder. That's why I said he's an example of how not to be a man, because he can't own his defeats. He can't acknowledge his shortcomings. He has to surround himself with people that tell him how amazing and wonderful he is. And that's just completely unhelpful. It's quite an old saying that a real friend will tell you what you've done wrong or tell you about your shortcomings. That's somebody who's actually got your back. Somebody's going to tell you the things you don't want to hear. So you're right. I don't know that it's a good idea for Devin Haney to try and court these people. And if it's Bill Haney doing it, it's a mistake. Because they don't show up for pay-per-views. They never put their hand in the pocket. What was Deontay Wilder's numbers against Helenius like? They were terrible. So it's not a good way to promote yourself as a fighter, in terms of it's not going to improve your monetary value. You're not going to get any more. You're just going to make these individuals on YouTube get more views, get more super chats, and put money in their pocket. And you're not going to actually translate this sort of cult following into a buying public that spends money on pay-per-views, because they don't. They're all Team Stream. So it's detrimental to your monetary value, and it's detrimental to your ability as an individual to continue to improve and get better.
Tony, did you listen to the interview?
No.
Have you seen the quotes?
A few, but I don't watch 78 Sport. I don't think I've ever seen one of his videos.
I had to listen to this one because I couldn't believe none of these quotes until I actually listened. I had to. Tony, let me ask you a question about these delusions and these lot of nonsense he's got to be talking. How does one overcome this sort of stuff? You're trying to improve as a fighter, but he has these lots of ideas as to what he is and who he is.
You don't.
Huh?
I was going to say, you don't even have to continue it. You don't and you cannot. As long as you, like John was saying, as long as you are around the same people that you're around, as long as you're around people that are telling you what you want to hear versus what you need to hear, you will never improve, you will never get better, and you will never see the errors in your ways. It's a bad look. Like I said, that's why I said earlier, if we know half the statement is bullshit, then how can we believe the first half? Because Anthony Joshua absolutely was not going to retire regardless if Wilder won or not. That was a absolute never going to happen. And it's delusional to think any other thing but that. Like, the man was going to continue to fight. Okay, that's stupid. He's not going to retire for Deontay Wilder. Win, lose, or draw, even if he lost to Deontay Wilder, he more than likely wouldn't retire after that draw. After that loss, because he still is younger and he can still fight on. So I just think with the suit comments, the spiked water, everything that's came out, now these new statements, the excuses, it works for a certain demographic of people that follow the channels that you say. But once you get away from those channels and you go into the masses, the actual boxing world, whether it be casuals, hardcores, you look bad. It's a very bad look. Again, like I said, that statement, in my opinion, saying that Anthony Joshua was going to retire versus fighting him was only put out there to make AJ look bad. It was to say, well, it doesn't matter what I did, he was still going to retire anyways. It's a constant attack on Anthony Joshua. That's all it is. And the thing about it is this: if you're doing what you should be doing, and as if you're as good as you are, you don't have to bring other people down. Your name alone will keep you up. You don't have to try to trash somebody else to look better. And that's what it always is. It's just like a constant attack on Anthony Joshua, regardless how good or bad he does.
I'm very disappointed in the fact that Deontay was 38 years old and father. As far as I understand, he's a very good father, and I respect that. But these quotes, when you put these things out in the ether, they don't go away. They never go away. People will never forget that Deontay would have blamed his walkout suit for his performance against Tyson Fury in the second fight. They will never forget it. You fill your training camp with sycophants like Malik Scott, Jay Diaz, who during the whole saga with Matt Breland saying, oh, sometimes Deontay comes and the champion in a good mood, you can't talk to him for a little while and all this other dumb shit. So what happens then, Tony? Because if Deontay is not going to listen, he's not going to improve, he's going to keep the same attitude. He's said, Tony, he's not going to retire. What do you expect from Deontay Wilder in this part of his career? Tony's reviews.
Again, he can't and he won't get better. You cannot get better if you surround yourself by people who tell you what you want to hear and not what you need to hear. You have to know what you're doing wrong. You have to see it from the outside looking in. And if they're just boosting you up, telling you what you want to hear, then there's no room for improvement. Then there's the age factor, being 38 years old. Now, in my opinion, he didn't look old in the ring. That's not why he lost. He was just outskilled, outmatched. But eventually, Father Time is going to creep in. He's going to get slower. His reaction time is going to get worse. And that's where, when you look at a fighter like Roy Jones Jr., he was so great when he was young because he did everything wrong, but he had natural abilities to rely on. He was just so much faster than everybody else. They couldn't take advantage of it. But the minute Roy got old, he started getting knocked out. He started getting beat because he never had good technique. And with Deontay Wilder, that right hand, as it slows down, as it can't be delivered like it used to be, even those low oppositions that you beat without technique, you're never going to find it. You're never going to be able to just wing it and land it because the speed is gone. So without getting rid of the people he's around, or at least bringing in new people that can take over, I'm not saying you have to fire everybody if you're friends with them, etc. But you need somebody who can teach you. If you're unwilling to learn, you're never going to get any better. And the only place for him to go is down.
Can Deontay Wilder go into an already established gym, like a gym that has like a schedule, a stable per se, like going to say, I don't know, going to a Freddie Roach gym, going to Derek James gym? Would he be able to go into that gym and just humble himself and work within the gym setup?
Are you still asking me?
Yeah. I'm gonna move to John after
I
this.
don't know. I don't know if he could or could not. I've never met him. I've never been around him. You know what I mean? I don't know on a personal level if he could or could not. I don't know if he has to be the star. I don't know if he can listen. It would be impossible for me to answer that without ever meeting him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. John Dealey, Deontay Wilder's current chapter in his career. He's not retiring. What do you expect? No.
What do I expect, or what would I like to see?
Both.
Okay. What I'd like to see him do is to do what you've just suggested: go somewhere else, get a better team around him, surround himself with better people, be active, have the fights, get sharp, and see what you can do. What I expect to see is for him to continue calling out Anthony Joshua in the hope that he can preserve himself for that payday, because I think that's all he's there for. I think that's why they've gone back to why they're doing this talking talk, because they think that's the best way to actually get the fight made. Me personally, I'd like to see Joshua and Wilder fight. I don't know what's going to happen about this Hrgovic fight. It's been talked about for a long time. 1 minute.
That fight is contingent upon the IBF belt being dropped, though.
Well, it depends, because I've heard a different argument for it, in that the IBF have an interim title, so they could fight for 1 and 2 for the interim title, and then just be elevated. The winner would get elevated to full status. I don't know. I mean, me, from a selfish point of view, I'd still pay to see Joshua fight Wilder in March. Partly because I think this active Joshua is one of the main reasons why he's actually looked better in this, like why it's come together for this third fight. Whoever you want to give the credit to, whether it's trainers or whatever else it is, I think Joshua suffered from being inactive. I think it affected his performances, and I think he needs activity. So if they've got a fight and they can fund it, I want Joshua to fight in March, whether it's Wilder or Hrgovic. I don't really care. Neither of them look particularly good on the card. I can't say I'm particularly excited to see Joshua fight Hrgovic. I mean, he's just very sloppy looking and has.
No, I don't like Joshua to fight Hrgovic to hurt Hrgovic. I think Hrgovic is an absolute.
But if I could have any fight, if I could just pick who Joshua was fighting, I'd probably have him fight Zhang.
That's a huge fight, but
massive fight.
Oh,
you know, if it was just totally up to me, that's what I'd pick. But if it's going to be Hrgovic, I'd just as happily watch him fight Wilder as Hrgovic.
Yeah. Hey, gents, I want to thank y'all for coming on. I'm going to get back to what I was doing. I enjoyed the discussion. Anything y'all want to say, Tony? Hey, subscribe to Tony's Reviews. John Dealey don't have a fitness channel right now, but I hope he would have a fitness channel to encourage people like me to not be fat no more. John Dealey, any last words?
Just thanks for having me on, Kong. You have a happy new year and enjoy the rest of the carnival.
Yeah, man. Peace. Hey, Tony's Reviews. Anything from you, brother?
No, I appreciate you letting me on. I will say that I don't care to see the Anthony Joshua Deontay Wilder fight. If If it would have been vice versa, where AJ would have lost, Wilder would have won, I wouldn't care to see it because it at this point to me it's kind of pointless. Like you know, if one of them would have lost, who it doesn't have the same luster. It just is lost its value, in my opinion.
But what
Unless
about
Wilder can come back and beat some bums and look good, I don't really. It's just a non-factor.
okay?
Like,
Let me ask you something. If you could map out 3 fights for Wilder, fight Anthony Joshua at the end of the year, what would the 2 fights be? And then Anthony Joshua at the end of the year. Who would you put Wilder in there with?
I'd put him in there with a guy I think he could beat right now, who I thought was going to win but lost. I'd put him in there with Gerald Miller because they have history.
Right,
Gerald
you
Miller's
said
a very good talker, so he could talk up the fight. Miller, like Wilder, didn't really let his hands go, so I think you have a lot of opportunities there to win that fight. After Miller, I would, if it could come through Miller with how Miller fights, I say a very good fight for him next would probably be somebody like, I'm really trying to think on this one. Maybe like a Joe Joyce would be good because then you got people from the UK watching it. He's slow, so he's hittable. And then for the third fight, put him in there with AJ. So what you do is get him in there with a talker like Miller, who's big. Get him in there with another big guy that's known in the UK. And if he can come through both of those, then it sets up the AJ fight.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, thank you for coming on, brother Tony. Hey,
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Subscribe to Tony's reviews. Y'all have a great day. My guy Rafi just come on, but Rafi, I gotta go. I'm sorry you just come on because you know I always got time for you, my brother. But next time we got to get on the Raphael Dawkins Combat Radio live from Dawkins Towers. Y'all have a great day. Peace.